Begin the current daf from Mesechta Yevamos Daf Menches. Begin 24 lines down at the top of the Amud, where the Gemara continues the discussion we brought up in the previous daf regarding chuppah l'psulais. Do we say that there is a halacha of chuppah for those who are invalid or not? The Gemara continues on a related vein in that topic. Shiur corresponds to Kalzach and Cheskot to any time. Joining today's daf. Something to discuss in today's daf, as we mentioned, the Gemara continues to establish the machlekes of yesh chuppah l'psulais regarding do we consider a valid chuppah with its all halachic implications for those that are apostle, like we said in Grusha Bavutz or Kohen Hedjit, that's apostle. Do we say that there is a acquisition of chuppah? The rules of eating truma for a woman who is a shemeres yibum, regarding that she's anticipating yibum, what is her status of eating truma in that state? Several instances in which an erusa will drink mei saita, which generally that's only for a married woman. When would you have that even an erusa will drink mei saita? Gilgal shvur is the halachic concept that although a person only has a demand on you making a note for one thing, but that could devolve it onto something else, because once you're swearing, they make you swear on everything. So we had said in the previous daf the following halach. We started on Nun Zayin Mabez on the top of the Amud. We started the discussion that a chuppah that precedes a prohibited biyah. So the question was whether it disqualifies a bas kain from eating truma. So we had a machlekes. Rav said yes chuppah l'psulis, and Shmuel said in chuppah l'psulis. And so the Gemara wanted to suggest that it's dependent on the machlekes regarding mishtameres l'biyah psula. We had said in our previous Mishnah, according to Meir, that he says kedushin pasli chuppah nami pasli, that it's preparing you for a forbidden biyah. So therefore, that's why kedushin Meir said invalidates from eating truma. So chuppah would have the same thing. Whereas according to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, that they say kedushin don't pasel, so chuppah would also not pasel, and that would be the machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Would you say that there is a kinyan of chuppah for psulas to make her invalid from eating truma? But the Gemara made a distinction that says no. Dilma Adkan, you could say, but each one not necessarily so. Maybe Rabbi Meir says over there that's only by kedushin, which is a kinyan, but by chuppah, which is not a kinyan. And that's what we discussed. That seems like not like Rav Huna, that Taisus was saying that the sugi was going like according to Rashi, but be it as it may, chuppah is not a kinyan, so maybe no, maybe that would not invalidate. Or you could say the other way. Maybe we find Rabbi Elazar and Shimon over there that they hold it's not a problem, only by kedushin because not near biyah. For example, do kedushin, then you have to do chuppah. But chuppah that's very close to biyah, and that's actually Rav Huna's svara why it's a kabel chaimer that chuppah is kaina from kedushin. Oh, maybe they would agree that's going to be possible. So not necessarily would be a machlekes tanoi. I mean, because that was Rami Bar Chama's interpretation that he wanted to say that this machlekes Rav and Shmuel is really machlekes Rabbi Meir plus Rabbi Shimon. So it says no, that's not necessarily. So the Gemara brought a different machlekes tanoim that says maybe that's what the machlekes would be dependent on. The Brisa taught nisu zuvizu, meaning what's zuvizu? Ksheres psul is any one of them. If they get married, if they have chuppah and they don't have biyah, the Tanakama held that the woman could eat from the food of the husband, and even if he's a kohen, she's oichlis b'tshuma. Whereas Rabbi Shmuel ben Eshab held no, kol shebiyasa machilasa chuppah machilasa. And if the biyah is not machilasa, the chuppah is not machilasa. So it's seemingly that this is a machlekes Tanakama held that in chuppah l'psulis, that there's no halacha of chuppah for besulis, meaning essentially the chuppah does not invalidate her. Whereas according to Rabbi Shmuel ben Eshab, we hold yesh chuppah l'psulis, meaning the chuppah is just like the biyah, and therefore since the biyah won't feed her, the chuppah is not going to feed her. Which the Gemara said no, maybe Rabbi Shmuel ben Eshab is holds like Rabbi Meir, that actually says kedushin lo yachal. So in this case, yes, although he mentioned the word chuppah, but really it's only because of the Tanakama had to tell us the word chuppah. But really, maybe that she was disqualified from the time of kedushin, and therefore that's why she won't be eating. But maybe chuppah itself will not possibly. So that's what the Gemara concluded and said you don't really have a raya to see a machlekes tanoim regarding this concept of chuppah l'psulos or not. And that's why our Gemara continues now. That's where we are 24 lines down at the top of the Amud. Daf Menches Amud Aleph. Omer Rav Amar says Hamilsa. This teaching, the fact we're going to see right now, Aman Lan Rav Sheish. Rav Sheish has told us, and v'ne'idenu la'aynin mimasnin, and he illuminated our eyes from a Mishnah Mesechta Saita. Mishnah says, and what's the teaching of Rav Sheish? He taught us yesh chuppah l'psulas, meaning like Rav that said that we do consider it a valid chuppah as a kinyan for those who are invalid. And V'tana Tuna, and he taught us a Mishnah that supports this halacha. What's this Mishnah? A very seemingly unrelated Mishnah, but that ties in. Amen it says 2 times in the Torah, Amen, that the woman says Amen. So why does it say Amen 2 times for? It's coming to include all the following to say that they're all included in this requirement of the woman's response to what the Kohen is making her swear about. What is she swearing about? Shalaisatisi, I did not stray from the relationship with my husband when I was arusa, when I was engaged, and neither did I stray when I was married. Neither did I stray shemeras yavam when my first husband had died and I was waiting for yibum as a shemeras yavam. Ukanusa, which kanusa really is the same thing as nesua. It's just an applicable terminology by Yevamos. Because the shemeras yavam means that she's waiting and anticipating yibum. So when the word kanisa means bringing in, like it says in the Varam Chafei, leisi eshes hamesa chutz leizar, this is Rashi and Kedushin of Zayin, that says that she shouldn't go out and be with a foreign man. Rather, her yavam should take her as a wife to his house. So he gathers her in. Be it as it may, he can make her swear regarding all these things when she's a suspected adulteress, when he had warned her, and then she's secluded, and now she's taken to the Beis Hamikdash. She swears regarding all these things. Now, says the Gemara, and this is Rav Sheshes is proving from this Mishnah of Yesh Chupal of Sulas. He says, Hayiru Sehechadam. What's this case that we're saying that the husband makes her swear regarding that she didn't stray when she was engaged? Remember, in Talmudic times, they would have a halachic engagement. We do it all together by the chasna, but they had it like Ayon HaMitvach. It was 12 months and they got married on the Wednesday. That's what it says, that she gets married B'Leila Ravi. So she was engaged woman for like a period of a year. So what's the case talking about that we're making her swear that she didn't stray? Ilema the Kani law ever where he warned her. And just to point out from what we said before, the Shemeras Yavam and the Knusa, what do we mean here with the Shemeras Yavam is that if she was a Yevama and the Yavam ends up marrying her, that's what we're saying, similar to like a regular man who there was Eris in the Suin, but the Shemeras Yavam is the same thing. You have Shemeras Yavam and Knusa, he could have her drink and make her swear even when she was secluded, when she was Shemeras Yavam, and the warder is going to inspect her for both of them. Because if she was Mizana when she was Shemeras Yavam, she is forbidden to him. Why? So Rashi explains, Rabbi Kiva in Mesech Ches, the Gemara explains, it's like Rabbi Kiva holds Kedushin is not Tevis B'chiva Lavin. So hence, a Yevama L'shok, which is a Chiva Lavin, is essentially according to Rabbi Kiva like an Eishes is like a married woman. So just like a married woman is forbidden on a person with Znus, so too a Shemeras Yavam would also be forbidden on her Yavam, and since she's forbidden, if she was Mizana, so it's appropriate to have the halacha of kina of warning. So that's what the Gemara is discussing. First, regarding the case of an engaged woman, what's the case talking about that she was straying when she was engaged? If it's Ilema the Kanila, if we're talking about where he warned her and he said, don't seclude with that man, Kishiarusa when she was engaged, and become Mashkila Kishiarusa, and he's actually giving her the site waters to drink when she's still a Kala, when she's engaged. Question is, Arusa Bas Mishtayahi? You think an engaged woman is someone who could drink the Saita waters which inspects her? If she was Mizana, then she dies a dastard death. But if she didn't, then she gets a child. But what's not the Mishnah says in Masechet Saita, Arusa v'Shmeres Yavam, both these women that are like type of engaged state, like not a full married state, Loi Shaitas, they don't drink. And the reason for that says Rashi, because you need Tachas Isheh. The pasuk says that you strayed beneath your husband. That's not applicable when she's engaged and when she's a Shemeras Yavam. And v'leinetlus ksuba, she doesn't take her ksuba, meaning if he warned her and she's secluded, since she caused herself to be forbidden on him because of her seclusion, so therefore she doesn't take her ksuba. But one thing is, how can you say the case of that she's going to be warned regarding her straying when she's engaged? It can't be that she strayed when you warned her when she's engaged and that she drank when she's engaged, because that wouldn't be, you don't drink when you're engaged. Sailor rather says the Gemara, no, the Kanilak Shardis, we're talking about where he warned her when she was engaged. And of course, we're trying to figure out, because you have to be warning before the seclusion, and then comes the drinking. So he warned her when she's engaged, Vestatra, and then when she was still engaged, she was secluded with that man. Then she got married. And become mashkala and now he's giving her to drink when she's married, so that would be applicable. That's tafasishech. She's married right now, she could drink to say the waters. The problem is, me botkilam, I have a different problem. You think the waters would inspect her in the case you just described? But by the time in the Bryce it says in the pasuk in my midbar says, V'nika ishmi avay. It says that the man will be cleansed from sin, and the woman's going to carry her sin. Meaning, if the man goes through the whole set of procedures, 15 months, he took care of the thing, and the wife will get her punishment.
How's he allowed to marry her?
What?
How's he allowed to marry her?
Oh, so that's the Gemara Shaila, meaning if it's the case that you just, what? Oh, so that's also, Tais is discussing that also. Okay, but so first the Gemara says like this. The pasuk says that he has to be clean from sin. Is only bisman sheish menukum me'avin. What does that mean? The man is clean from sin. So Rashi explains he did not have bia with her after she was raised secluded, because the Torah actually makes the saita, which is the suspected adulterous woman, forbidden on her husband. Because the pasuk in Mamid Barhei says v'hi nitma'ah, she's considered like she's tameh. Only when the man is cleansed from sin is hamayim b'ayit does the water check his wife. But einesh menukum me'avin, like in this case that you described. If she's secluded when she was engaged, which makes her a saita, and then he gets married to her, he can't get married. And then the water wouldn't be able to even inspect the wife because he's getting married after she's already a saita. So that wouldn't be an option because the water wouldn't check. So that's not a good case either. So, and this all proving, Rav Shesha is going to get to his point. Ella, obviously, and this is the point. So what's the case talking about? Must be the Kani law Kushiyarusa. That Kani is not from the word of kinya, but rather of kinoi, of warning. He warned her when she was a kal, when she was engaged. Vistatra, and she secluded herself. V'nechnes l'chuppah. What do you mean she got married? They had chuppah, v'loy nivela. They didn't yet have a bia. So it's still v'nikah ish. He didn't do any sinful thing. He wasn't intimate with her. But you have to be married. He has to be tachzishech. Ooh, she had chuppah without bia. But Shema no, so we could infer from this from the fact that he has her drink, to say the waters in such a case, that yesh chuppah lipsulai, that we do consider a woman that's pasul, which is the saita, as a kinyan of chuppah, and therefore it's considered tachas isha because the chuppah was koinor, even though she's in a role of bia, she has a bia psula, because the Torah says once she's secluded, it's forbidden. So see like Rav that yesh chuppah psulas.
But it's not the kisot it's tachas ishech, because the period that he's mekanelo is before he brought it into chuppah. Right. So that's still not applicable.
Right.
So
Right. When it happened, it wasn't tachas. But now, now it is tachas. It sounds like that it's enough.
No, but it's not tachas.
Right.
No, but kin is still has to be tachas or the actual.
It says,
right, so we're saying that. For the
yeah, the suspected adulteress was done when you were tachas ishech, but it wasn't.
Maybe it was one brother that did Kenny, the other brother did Yevamot.
What?
Maybe it was one brother that warned her, and the other brother did Yevamot.
Oh, well, first now we're talking about the case of just being engaged now. Now we're never talking about Shemet Yavam. Now there was two cases, it was Arusa and Usua, and Shemet Yavam and Kenusa. So now we're just discussing even just without Yivim. Yeah, so it's a good shaila. You have to know how do you translate. But ad keseltes tachas ishech, it sounds like that you have strayed beneath your husband. That doesn't have to be when you actually did the sin, it sounds like. You strayed, tachas ishech, you're married now, tachas ishech, although you did the maisa when you were engaged, it sounds like that it would be enough right now, as long as now that you're doing the procedure of the site of tachas ishech, that would be enough. So you see, like Rav, that a raya that yesh chuppah l'psulas. However, Amar Rava says, wait a second. V'tizba, is it logical to ask from this brisa to show that like Rav, not like Shmuel? But you think that this brisa mitaretztehi, that it's even the correct brisa? But when he came from Durham, from the south, he came and he brought a brisa in his hand. The brisa quotes the pasuk of Midbar that says that you strayed tachas ishech beneath your husband, and you became tamei, and a man put his laying with you mibala de ishech, besides the laying that is done with your husband. What does that mean, mibala de ishech? Which sounds like, says the brisa, misha kadma shechibes bala boil. The halach of Seit only applies if it's mibala de ishech, meaning you already laid carnally with your husband, and then you had relation with the boil. That's where the halach of Seit applies. But it does not apply when the boil laid with her before the baal. So wait a second. How could you even tell me the halacha applies by a nerusa? The price doesn't make sense. Don't bring me a ride from this price to Rav. How could you have a saita by arusa? A man is never allowed with his arusa. He wasn't intimate with his arusa. We say asalon asarusas v'hitalam. We say this bracha by the chuppah. There's no, you're not allowed to have any beer with the arusa. So you had the boil then who had before the Baal. So then the whole thing doesn't make sense anyway. How you telling me that you're going to be mashka an arusa? So the whole, you have to throw out the brisa anyway. You can't bring it right to Rav. It's not true. It's not problematic, the brisa. Mishkachas, you could have the brisa's case of arusa, kugajabola arusa, if her chassan was intimate with her, bevesa via, in her father's household, before she's secluded with that other man. And therefore, it makes sense, because he did have bia with her when she was engaged. So you had kadma bias habal laboil, and that's why Saita is going to apply.
And it's Nika, and he's not knocking. So how?
But that's only the not nucky of had afterwards, not stam nishya the ein is anuki, when it's a kid fro. It doesn't mean that kamus continue lavayda. It just means that regarding this of her straying becoming a Saita. But then the Gemara asks as follows. Okay, the Kabbos Soga b'Shemeres Yavam. But you're telling me that the equivalent is by Shemeres Yavam, right? There's two cases in the Brisa. It spoke about when she's engaged as a regular woman and then married as a regular woman, or when she's like the equivalent by a Yavama, which is Shemeres Yavam, which is almost like a Kedushin, and then there's like when she's Kenusa, when the Yavam already married her. So then the equivalent is by Shemeres Yavam, which is, you're telling me by Shemeres Yavam that there's going to be a Saita, Shemeres Yavam also, he wasn't with her. How can you have Baal before the boy over there? Obviously you're telling me, Shabal Yavam, that must have been at the Yavam, for Znus purposes, he went ahead and he had Bia with her Beves Chameha, in her father-in-law's household, which is when she was a widow. And then the Yavam warned her and says, stay away from that guy, and she's secluded with that guy. And then he had chuppah with her and did not have bia, and then he gave her to drink, and he's having her swear that you did not stray the first time that you were secluded by when you were still a Shemeres Yavam. Problem is the Gemara, the Tintam and Beis, Shemeres Yavam Kadis Law. How can you call it Shemeres Yavam? Ishtam Al Yehi, that's a regular wife. The Omer Rabbi told us that Kan Lakol, when you have a bia shaygig, you're mazid and oinus and nuts and whatever the bia is, doesn't make it matter what your intent was. As long as you weren't sleeping, whatever it is, she's your wife. So how can you understand this case that you're describing, that you have bia's bow before the boil by Narusa, and then so you're telling me that equivalent by Shemeres Yavam, in contrast to Kedusha when she's already the Yavam's wife, when are you ever having by Shemeres Yavam a halacha of Saita? It's never gemult, because you need to have a bia before and to have the bia's bow before the boil. But if the Yavam, in contrast to a regular man, his bia is not automatic. By the Yavam, it's automatic. So if you're having the bias of the Yavam, the Baal, before the boil, by when she's a Shemeres Yavam, she's not a Shemeres Yavam anymore. She's his regular Kenusa. So how you understand that case? Says, that's not difficult. Because you're going like Shmuel. Because we had this machlekes on the previous Daf, and Daf Nunvav. The Omei says, Loikana, it's not true. This that we say in our Mishnah, Habal Yevimto, Yevim B'Shoy, Yevim Meiz, Boin Ben Melatzim, it's El Dvar Ma'orim B'Parasha, it's only things that said there, the Parasha, to inherit the brother, to exempt the Tzara, but to be kind of everything, that's not true. So we're still calling her Shemeres Yavam. It's not a Kenusa yet. Says the Gemara, wait a second, that's not a good answer. Midihu Taima, this whole thing that we're bringing this brisa, that we're showing that there's chuppah l'psulis. The whole reason was only to support l'rav. He's the one that holds yesh chuppah l'psulis. And that's why we're bringing it to support him and showing it. No, we're showing that it's not. We're saying, no, we're resolving, we're showing how the brisa is mitaretzta, and we bring it right to Rav. But Ha'amar Rav. But Rav himself says, Kana la'koil. So for him, you're not resolving it to explain the brisa, because the case of Arusa and Shemeres Yavam doesn't make sense. Meaning you're trying to show me that the brisa makes sense by resolving and telling me that, she could be a Shemeres Yavam when it's a Bia Shoygig or Mezid or whatever this and that, because it's going like Shmuel. But the whole point of us trying to show how the brisa makes sense is because we want it to be a support. Rav Sheshes is supporting who? Rav. that yes chuppah l'psules? Because you're telling me that the only way you're having is chuppah b'lebiyah, and that's showing chuppah koina. Who holds that? That's Rav. Rav Lishi Tosai doesn't make sense because he holds that it is koina. So according to him, the way you explain the Brisa of Arusa, the equivalent of Shemeres Yavam doesn't make sense because Shemeres Yavam won't be anymore. She will be a Knusa. So we're back to the drawing board. Say, what is the case talking about? Says the Gemara, Hachamay Eskina. What are we talking about over here? So we're not going to explain, as we did in the first option, of that the Shemeres Yavam, that he had Bia with her. No. We're talking about going to Ovid B'Maymer. We're talking about where the Yavam did a Maimer with her, and we don't care, says Rashi, according to this interpretation, that the boil was first. Meaning the Yavam didn't do any Bia with the Yavam. If he did, according to Rav, we're trying to explain it for, it should be not a Shemeres Yavam anymore. Why are we not particular? I thought you have to have Bia's Baal before the boil. So it says Rashi, interesting svar. It says because the Yavam is really just taking over from the first husband, from the brother. The first husband's Bia was before that of the boil. So that will be enough of being makdim Bia's Baal LeBoil. But you still need to have it that to be Tachas Ishech. As we explained for the Arusa, that Haygin of Tachas Ishech, because you did Chuppah, even though you didn't do Bia, so that's still an Arusa, that's not a full-fledged Nesua. So here also, the Maimer has a full Kinyan, because it'll be Shamahi. It's going to be Shamite, this price. The Amri that they say Maimer Koine Kinyan Gomer, Maimer is a full-fledged Kinyan, so that'll be Tachas Ishech. So that's the case of Shemeres Yavam, according to this halacha of Yesh Chuppah L'Psulos, that the case of Arusa is talking about where you're engaged and you had Chuppah. So what do we talk about? What's the case of the Shemeres Yavam? How do you have, so you have Bia's Baal before the boil because of the first husband, and how do you have Tachas Ishech? You have it because you did a Maimer, and the Maimer is a Kinyan Gomer, and therefore it's considered Tachas Ishech for the Yavam. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, they tell me Shemeres Yavam is with Maimer, Hain Arusa, that's really the same thing as the case of Arusa, where that's an engagement with what the Maimer is doing, which is a Kinyan. Says the Gemara, okay, according to your reasoning, Nesua b'Kenusa l'avchad milsi, isn't Nesua and Kenusa the same thing? Meaning Nesua is by an unrelated woman that you just get married to. Kenusa is also a Yevama, but it's also the same thing, it's a Nesua. Ella rather, Nesua Didei, Nesuin is just by his own, but Kenusa l'chavre, and Kenusa is when he takes from his friend, meaning from his brother, which is Hebrew. So you're right, it's the same thing, it's the same equivalent, that it's making it a type of Tachas Ishech, by the Shemeres Yavam, just like we do it by the Arusa, but you're right, it's the same thing that the woman would have to swear regarding that she didn't stray, both when she was engaged and married, both when it's by an unrelated woman, and both when it's a Yavam. Now, the Gemara, however, says, so this was all again for interpreting for Rab, that we said for Rav Sheshes, that we wanted to support him and say, Yesh Chuppah L'Psulos. But now the Gemara brings two rejections that not necessarily would this be in support of Rav. How so? So Papa Amar, he says that no, you cannot be medayik yesh chuppah l'psulas. Why? Because truth is that it's not the chuppah that's being kinda this woman, because obviously you have to have tachas ishech. Rather, we're talking about that he has bia after the nisuin. He had bia after marriage. And the truth is, the case he's talking about where he warned her when she was engaged, and she secluded before he had bia with her. And he's giving her to drink when she's already married. So there's two questions. First of all, you're having the laying of the boil before the baal, because that was during engagement. And another question is, then he's not clean from sin, because you're telling me that he had bia with her. Because that's the only way that you're making it into tachas ishech, because he had bia. But I thought you can't have bia, and then it's not gonna, it's not menukum oven, so it's not gonna be badika on her. So that is what Rav Papa is being mechadish, that no, there's not a difficulty. Why not? Because Hai Tana, this Tana in the Mishnah Masechta Saita, doesn't hold of these two drushes, like Taisus explains for Rashi. He does not hold of the drush of a Nika Ishmi Oven, and he does not hold of the drush of Shekov Meshchivas of Alaboyel. Where do we find such a Tana? Which Taisus finds difficult. We don't find this anywhere that people don't hold of this drusha, but that's how Rashi explains the Papa's answer. This is who the Tana, learn the Brisa. Brisa says, Eimekan lo larusa, that we don't warn an arusa, lashkoisa kisharusa, to have a drink when she's engaged, because you can't be engaged and drink. But you could warn her when she's engaged, lashkoisa kishinesu, to have a drink when she's married. So you see that you can subsequently get married. So even though she, again, had the bia when she's engaged, so you have the boil before the bow, and from the fact that the husband's subsequently going to get married, that doesn't make a difference. This Tana does not hold of these two drushes. Even if he's not Melukam Oven, it's not a problem. We don't require Kod Meshchivas Ba'al Boil. We don't require Melukam Oven. And again, she says that why she's drinking, because she's Nesua based on Chuppah with Bia. You can't prove to me Rav's halacha that, yes, Chuppah L'Psula, you see the Chuppah is going to be Kaina. No, Chuppah itself is not going to be Kaina. It's the Chuppah with the subsequent Bia. We didn't like it originally. We said, Chuppah would Bia. I thought you can't have Bia. Bia would make, it's not going to do Bedika. It's not going to check it because you sin by it. No, the Tana doesn't require those two. And therefore, very simply, he rejects Rav's Raya. Now, another rejection of the Raya, Nachman Yitzchak, he says that the Mishnah is talking about, it's a very different case. He didn't warn her, she didn't seclude when she was engaged, they had a beautiful engagement period. He warned her after she was already married. A few years into the marriage, she's in the company and she's starting to say, do me a favor, stay away from this guy, and she secludes herself with that guy. Then he gives her a drink to say the waters through the warning of now. And therefore, Gilgul, what's called halacha, Gilgul Shvua, he could roll it, he could devolve the oath that all the days that she was in his relationship with him, from the moment she was engaged, for that it's also going to check her. And says Rashi, and explains and expounds on this, which is where the source of Gilgul Shvua in that Torah comes from, which over here, specifically over here, that's how it is. But you're right, it has nothing to do with Kina and Steve when she was engaged, because it wouldn't work for Narusa, and it wouldn't work for him having B afterwards. No, it's just, once you're doing it, then you make her swear, and anytime you had a relationship, that makes sense. That's a regular tachazisha, that she had a relationship with the Baal before this boil that he's suspecting her with. But again, once I'm making you swear, I'm making you swear on everything, and therefore again, it has nothing to do with Rav, no Raya, nothing to do with any chuppah, l'psulas. It's just a regular case of saita. Just once you're doing it, you can make her swear on the engagement period too. Now, an interesting related case says the Gemara as follows: Shalach Rav Chanina mishmei de Rabbi Yechida. Says interesting. He says as follows. It says Oisa maimer b'yavimta. If someone makes a maimer in his yavam, v'yesh le'ach, this brother who's doing the maimer has another brother. Afilu hu kain the kain's. Now, going back to the yavam, the yavama. Even if the yavam is a kain and the yavama is a kehenis, paslim and a truma. He invalidates her from truma until he actually consummates the relationship and marries her. Which is interesting, because seemingly, if she's still from the old, she's kehenis. If she's from the new, he's a kain. No, in this period, now right now, after he gave her the maimer, she's pasul. Says the Malaman, wait, who are you going like? Because we discussed this in our Mishnah. If you think it's going like Remeir, where does Remeir say Mishtameres Labia Psula? That when the woman is waiting for a bia, that's pasul. What does that mean? Why does that do it over here? So Rashi explains, very interesting. This Yavam, who gave the Maimer, his brother could technically still do bia with this Yavama, and it would be a valid bia. Now, she is essentially mishtameres for the bia of the one who gave the maimer. So too she's mishtameres to the bia of his brother, because biblically the one who gave the maimer didn't do anything. So she's really waiting. She's shemeres yavam. She's waiting for a bia from all of them, including the brother. Now, that is rabbinically pasul for the other brother to do yibum, because that's meaning we hold yesh bia achar maimer, that bia would take effect after maimer, as the Mishnah turned up Nun Beis. If you give maimer lazu, bal lazu, so too when you have two yavaman with one yavama, the bia would take effect after the maimer. But it's rabbinically possible because you already did a mimer with one brother. So therefore, it says the Gemara like this. When did Rameir say when you're anticipating a bia basula loy achla, then even with kedushin, which is what mimer is, you cannot eat truma? That's midiraisa. That's by a bia that's biblically possible, like Hamal Lukan Gadol. So Meir said in that Mishnah that he just gets engaged to her, which didn't do anything wrong yet, essentially, she's not a halala. No. Because you're being mishtameres lebib, so you're waiting, you're anticipating this bia that's going to make you into halal. Already from the engagement, you can't eat. Yeah, but did Abana me'amar, but by rabbinic isser, did he say that? When you're being mishtameres lebia, did Abana psula? Did he say that? Who said? Maybe he didn't say that. How can you tell me that she would be possible from truma? Well, what are you going to say? Little Belazar, Rabbi Shimon, which they were the other opinion that says Mishtameres Labi Psula Deraisa is Achla. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Hash Mishtameres Labi Psula Deraisa Achla. If they hold, even when you're waiting for a biblically prohibited bia, like a Malakan Gadol, she could eat truma. So when you're waiting for a rabbinically invalidated bia, for sure you would be able to eat. How can you say, according to them, that you wouldn't eat? So Ella rather, so who's this going like that was saying that she cannot eat? When Rabban came along, Rabbi said, it says, you're right. If the Kohen made a mimer in his Yevamot, according to everyone, who's that everyone? It's both according to Rabbi Yechon and Rishlakish that we're going to shortly quote. They all agree that Achla, she could still eat the truma from her father's household. Meaning, even according to Meir, she's not going to be puzzled only when she's anticipating a biblically bia psula. But here's only a rabbinically prohibited bia with the other brother that she should be mishtameres for. That would not make her invalid. Now, but if let's say that Yavam has an ach chalul, a brother that's chalul. A chalul is a desecrated kohen. Everyone agree that she's not going to have to eat truma now when she's engaged with the mimer, even if she is a bas kohen, and even though a kosher kohen did a mimer with her, she's still mishtameres for a bia psula, which is a psula deraisa, which is the bia of a chalul, and therefore she cannot eat truma. So even according to Rabbi Shimon that say that she's kosher when she's a Malka and Gadol, that's because yesh lahacham makam acher. That kohen, instead of a grusha, can feed any woman truma. But when she's waiting for a yavam chalul, he never can feed because a kohen that's a chalul is like a zar, and therefore he invalidates and she cannot eat because she's being mishtameres lebib psul deraisa. That's by the case of a brother that's a chalul. So then, what is the machlokes? Like Nechleku Ella, the only disagreement is in the case of Shenasa, where the Kohen gives law to her, to the Yevama that's a Kehenis, he gives her a get. Now, even though he gave her a get, she's still Mishtameres for his Bia on the biblical level. She's only rabbinically puzzled because rabbinically the get is effective. That's the machlokes Rabbi Yechon and Shlakish in that case. What's the machlokes? Rabbi Yechon, he says, yeah, she eats truma. Shlakish, he says, she doesn't eat. Why? So the Gemara explains. Rabbi Yechon says, she eats afil remeir, even according to remeir. The Amar that he says when she's being mishtameres for a bia pesula. She doesn't eat truma. Yeah, but when we say the mishtameres will be pesula deraisa, that's when she's waiting for a biblically prohibited bia, like a malakan gadol, grusha v'chutz klein edged. But when it's only rabbinically prohibited, like when the Yavam gave her a get, then she does eat. Now, Shlakish, he says, no, she doesn't eat. And he goes the other extreme. He says, I feel like that they say that even when she means she could eat truma when there's kedushin. But when did we say this? That was through kedushin. The yesh lelahachal, that this kedushin that he's doing to this almana, to this gerusha, he could, in such a situation, feed b'makam acher with a different woman, which, when he would be able to give her based on this maisa of kedushin. Well, hachal, but over here through gerushin, kivan the ein lahachal, he can never feed through gerushin. So kivan the ein lahachal, since he can't feed through gerushin. So the makam acher in another situation, so therefore it's not going to work. Meaning gerushin never is something that's ro lahachal. If anything, gerushin removes, and therefore that's not going to go ahead and be able to make a kinyan to be able to allow even the Garden Blazer B'Shimon for her to eat truma. Now, if you're going to say, what do you mean? He could go ahead and feed her through a full-fledged gerushin B'chayzeres, when if he would give her a full gerushin, this, let's say, Yevamos, she would go back to her father's household and she would eat truma because she's a bas kayin. So you see that gerushin actually could go ahead and feed truma. Says Gemara, no, you can't say that because chayzeres, a woman who goes back to her father's household, paskimei, she's disconnected from him, and u'kreva l'beinashin, she's back close to her father's household. That's why full-fledged gerushin would have her eat truma. But in this case, the get of the Yevama, agidave, she's still connected because the get of the Yevama is only rabbinically a get, and she's still connected, and therefore, even according to Blazer Shimon, says Rish Lakish that even though they hold mishtameres levi psul deiraisa she could eat, that's because this ma'aseh kedushin that he's doing to her works elsewhere. So it could be machal, but here by a get, this get cannot work b'makam acher, even though we find by a get gomer that works, but that's only because nothing to do with him. It's just because she goes back to her father's household and she's not connected. Here, when she's still connected, therefore she's still connected. Even if her Shimon, it's not going to work and she's not going to be. Thank you to any time.